we are indeed doing another massive Load Seaters live stream to cover the US elections on Tuesday, the 5th of November. We will have a giant roster of guests, both in the studio and remotely via Zoom, and we will be live streaming on Rumble, so we'll be able to say exactly what we think, no holds barred. Do tune in, it's going to be great, and hopefully we'll be ringing in Trump's second term, or perhaps we'll be having a massive meltdown. Who knows what the future holds. See you then. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. This is actually this is a bit full circle for me. You know, on July the 4th, our Independence Day, I spent the day watching the Euros and following your election. So I feel like this is just coming full circle. It's talk about mythopoetic.
Yeah. Well, I think that what happens in America is important to Britain, and I think that what happens in Britain should be paid attention to by people in America.
Very much so. Yeah,
because I think there is something historic about the nature of what's happening, and it's definitely across the entire Anglosphere, I would say. Well, but anyway, so
but just put in parentheses there. You shot the first shot across the bow with Brexit. You know, June 23rd. I mean, people talk about November 8th of 2016 being sort of this political earthquake felt around the world. It was preceded a few months by June 23rd. And that, I think the combination of those two, that 1-2 punch, just set the deep state into an absolute panic, because they were seeing for the first time ever the European Union being dismantled by these rabble-rouser populist movements. And they thought, okay, well, maybe that's just fluke. And then all of a sudden, the guy who campaigned on unraveling the liberal international order is the first Republican to win over 300 electoral votes in 30 years. So they freaked out, and that's when I think you just started to see the crackdown come in. So yeah, we're kindred spirits here. We fight or die in this thing. That's for sure.
So can you give me your quick analysis of what you think is happening in 2024 and how you think it's different from 2020?
Oh, 2020 was insane. 2020 was just. It was an election that was completely inauditable. This is a very different election, extremely different. I think the bottom line of and here's the thing: despite all of that, Biden was only able to pull off a win by 40,000 votes. 10,000 in Arizona, 10,000 in Georgia, 20,000 in Wisconsin. Had those gone the other way, Trump would have been president these last 4 years. So the bottom line of this election is, can Kamala Harris hang on to Biden's 40,000 vote margin from 2020, despite the fact that the electorate has shifted 4 to 6 points to the right? And that really, to me, that's the election in a nutshell. Can Harris hold on to Biden's 40,000 vote margin in an electorate that shifted 4 to 6 points to the right? Obviously, she can't expand on that lead in that electorate, but can she hold on to it? So that's, to me, that's the key to this election. Everyone, every single
hang on, Dr. Turley, I've got to push back on. Are you saying that Kamala Harris is an inferior candidate to Joe Biden? Didn't you realize she's the first brown woman of color? I don't know. She's got some identity categories that apparently I've been reliably told by left-wing media reliably make her a really strong candidate in this. Are you suggesting she's not?
Well, I grew up in a middle-class family that loved our yards and our lawn. Oh, that's how she would answer it. Yeah, she's as dumb as a rock. It's so funny. I was talking about this with Daniel. I mean, I know a guy who actually, I think he personally prosecuted a case, or he had to defend a case against her in the California circuit. And he said, whenever we find out that Kamala is the one that we're going to be facing, when she was a DA, you just high-five your client and say, we got this. She's just, nobody took her seriously. We know she did not make her way to the so-called top here in the conventional way, in the meritocratic way, shall we say? I don't know how G-rated this program is. I doubt very much.
We try to be family friendly.
We all know how she made it to the top. And even just being chosen as vice president, she was a DEI hire. She literally checked every box.
Well, I mean, Joe Biden literally said he's taking because she's a brown woman. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you got it. He literally said it. I chose her because, and then he said, how dare you call her a DEI pick? I chose her because of DEI categories, but he didn't say it. So what's interesting is no one is talking about how many of Trump's states can Harris win. They're all talking about how many of Biden's states can Trump win. It's only a matter of how many of Biden's states can Harris successfully defend, given the 4 to 6 point swing to the right. So that's the core of the way the election is playing out, at least in terms of the rules or on the surface. Can Kamala Harris successfully defend that 40,000 vote margin that Biden won in 2020, despite the fact that the electorate shifted 4 to 6 points to the right? And while it's still early for us, of course, I don't know how far you've gotten into the Lagavulin yet, but while it's still early for us, we appear to be getting the answer to that. And that answer appears to be a very hard no. She can't. She is actually underperforming in some of the key demographic areas, particularly in Northern Virginia. Again, like our previous guest has talked about, they don't have to win Virginia. The question is whether she's struggling. If she comes to within a margin of 5 in her win of Virginia, just ask Hillary Clinton how that played out in 2016, the last Democrat to win Virginia only by 5 in the swing states. So she's having a rough go at it right now.
Can I ask Dr. Turley a couple of questions here? This is academic agent Nima Parvini, by the way. Last time we talked, you didn't see my face. This is what I look like, you know.
He was worried you wouldn't.
George Sanders a lot better looking than I am.
I think you look great. I love the beard. Love the beard.
So there's two questions really. When I'm, again, comparing to 2020, I noticed that there were a slew of late state Supreme Court decisions. There was one in Georgia. I saw there was one in Pennsylvania, where they basically ruled that they can't have this situation of votes coming in, not being dated, and still being counted. How significant do you think those late state Supreme Court rulings will be to stop any potential malarkey this time around? So that's the first question. I don't know if you want to go at that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think they're very significant. We still have Nevada. Nevada, actually, their Supreme Court allowed them to count for about 4 days afterward. It may not matter. It's not a very high populated state. So if Republicans, as they're winning, Trump is winning right now with a pretty comfortable margin in Nevada, stunningly. Nobody expected that, about 50,000 votes. It probably won't make that much of a difference. No, it makes a difference just in terms of just the legitimacy of the process. Very much what we were talking about earlier. Half the country, more than half the country in many respects, is suffering through a massive crisis of legitimacy towards our public institutions. Our public institutions, according to Gallup, have never had such a low level of trust and confidence. And we all know where that ends up going. Just ask the Berlin Wall. So the more the people just simply no longer trust in the process, the harder it is for them to rule, the more they have to crack down, and then we go into a doom loop in that sense.
I've got a question for you, Dr. Steve. Can I pick up on your point about the swing? Because yes, I mean, we're getting different swing numbers. It looks like it's broadly about a 5% swing. We're seeing different numbers, though, with independent voters, a sort of 20% swing from some of what we're seeing with independent voters. So it's looking good across the board. But Pennsylvania is sticking out like a sore thumb. How do you like Trump's chances, even if Pennsylvania goes against the general swing and ends up going for Harris?
Well, so far, in my data points coming in is actually Trump is performing better in eastern Pennsylvania. So that's the key. It's more eastern. So the way I've heard Pennsylvania explained, James Carville, the Democrat strategist from Louisiana, the Raging Cajun, as they call him. Yeah. You've got Philadelphia on one side, you've got Pennsylvania, or you've got Pittsburgh on the other side, and you've got Alabama in between. And so what we're looking at is the extent to which Kamala's margins that have been shrinking in, for example, New York. So Biden's winning New York by 23, but Kamala only seems to be winning it by 11 or 12. I'll have to look at the latest data. If those shrinking margins translate to shrinking margins in eastern Pennsylvania. Now, that's key because eastern Pennsylvania, where I used to live, just outside of Philly, for example, that tends to be a sleepover county for Manhattan. New York. It's just an hour and 20-minute train ride into New York. So if you're seeing the margins dampered in New York, Jersey, Virginia, you're probably going to see comparable dampering in eastern Pennsylvania. Again, doesn't mean Trump has to win eastern Pennsylvania. He just has to shave off those margins. Same with Allegheny County, that has Pittsburgh. Just have to shave off those margins. And he seems to be doing it primarily with the attraction towards him by young black men under 50. We do have, I hate exit polls, but we do have an exit poll that shows that black men, I believe it's in Georgia, they have 20% of black men voting. Let me see. Yeah, I think it was 20% of black men voting for Trump, which would be insane. We've never seen anything like that. So the idea, that sort of the secret sauce, is he's maximizing his own margins while minimizing hers. Yeah, CNN Georgia, they're reporting Trump got 25% of black men in Georgia.
Really?
That would be upwards of a 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
Black men didn't want to be hectored by Kamala Harris for that. What a shock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Building on,
I'm actually very I'm very bullish on Pennsylvania right now. Again, we'll see, because just the massive amount of that Alabama vote coming out, I think is going to be able to overwhelm whatever she was able to accomplish in Philly and Pittsburgh, largely because the margins have been shaved off.
So, sorry, Bo, I know you wanted to come in. I just want to very quickly add that Polymarket is now over 80% for Trump.
Oh, blimey.
Okay.
I think it's a very good question you asked about the state Supreme Courts, and Dr. Steve talking about this idea of a doom loop. If you look back at, I know I probably do it a bit too much and it's my thing, but talk about the end of the Roman Republic. If you look at the very end, the sort of Caesar, Crassus, Pompey days, where nobody had any faith in the system at all, and that's when republics truly die, and you end up with, well, the only thing you can have is a monarchy or a military dictatorship or something. So I wonder what Dr. Steve thinks. That so far it looks like, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's not just going to be a massive story of cheating this evening, and that is, if that is the case, i.e. that there's not tons and tons of cheating like happened in 2020, that bodes well, that perhaps the republic can come back from the brink. What does Dr. Steve think about that in the broadest terms?
I am hopeful if we can get through, even if we couldn't get through this. I mean, I think we're seeing a red state renaissance. There I go again, right? But you guys got it. You know that. So we're seeing a red state renaissance happening right now. We have a phenomenon known as refugees who are leaving blue states, like the one I'm in. I'm outside of Philly, leaving blue states, moving to red states. Like you said, God bless Ron DeSantis. I mean, Florida is just through the roof right now in terms of property value, just because millions of people are moving out there, and they're making these states more red. They're making them deeper and far more conservative. So
I've got lots of friends in Florida who are complaining about exactly that problem. And they're like, you should move out to Florida. It's like, no, your property prices are worse than in England. So
that's right.
You get worse weather too, so no.
You get right. That's right. You got to watch out for those hurricanes, don't you?
Miami-Dade, named after one of my ancestors.
Oh, was it?
Francis Langhorne Dade, yeah.
May I ask you a question?
Oh, sorry.
Well, let me, if I can, just say, I think I really do like the sociologist Peterim Sorokin, the American Russian sociologist, founded this sociology department at Harvard University, where he think, you know, he's an answer to Spengler, right? So you guys know the rise and fall of civilizations. Sorokin argued, no, there's a rise, a fall, and a rise again, literally a kind of resurrection of civilizations. And he thinks when civilizations begin to rot, they inevitably turn into a kind of compost, and they reawaken the sacred seeds underneath, the religious and idealistic seeds that gave birth to the civilization in the first place. And so that's why I think we're seeing a lot of retraditionalization going on all over the world, and I do think that's happening all over, particularly Europe. It's frustrating because it's covered up with so much of the decomposing rot, but there is a renewal that's happening as well. And what I try to do, or try to get, what keeps me sane, is I try to focus as much as possible on the little buddings of renewal that I can find, and treat the rot as just that. Now, the rot can be pretty bad. I mean, the rot we're talking about as nuclear weapons, obviously, so they can be rough, no question. But I do think that we are seeing a kind of retraditionalization. I mean, you look at what's going on in India with the rise of the Hindu nationalists, or even China. They talk more about Confucius than communism. You're seeing with this Russian Orthodox renewal, Erdogan in Turkey, re-envisioning an Islamic republic, and on you go. I'm not prescribing it; I'm just describing it. This is the stuff that's happening. I actually read a report, very interesting, that if you take the idea of theocracy and you have this wide spectrum of definition, where you can have a very soft theocracy on the one hand and a very hard theocracy like the mullahs on the other. This one scholar was arguing that probably upwards of about 3 billion people in the country right now live under some kind of soft form of theocracy. That was not the case 30, 40 years ago. So there is this amazing kind of re-traditionalization happening, which gives me a lot of hope, and hopefully it shines its beautiful buds tonight.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.